We live in a world of technology, and we are constantly connected through our smartphones and tablets. But when's the right time to introduce your child to a smartphone or tablet? We live in the technological information age. It's how we roll. It's no longer a question of whether our children will be exposed to technology. They will. So it's important for us as parents to be intentional in how we approach this. Now, there's a lot of opinions out there, and opinions are about worth what you pay for them. So you're going to see a lot of different opinions on social media, for example, or if you do a little Google search about when's the right time to introduce your kids to a smartphone or a tablet. I'm finding, and maybe you've seen this too, that a lot of the published opinions out there are people who are saying, oh, it's bad, or you're going to mess up your kids. Honestly, we don't have a lot of data yet about this. So be hesitant in your interpretation of any of the opinions that are out there. Here's what we do know, and maybe some considerations that we can follow it up with. Children, especially between birth and 3 years old, are in a very important developmental stage. They require all kinds of input and interaction and experiences for their little brains to develop properly. What we're finding with technology is that it's so engaging that even with very young children, they want to go to the screen. They're drawn to the colors and the movements and the sounds, and it's naturally very engaging to get into a smartphone or a tablet application. The problem with that is while they're engaged here with the screen, they're not engaged here with the real world. So really it's not an issue of, is it going to hurt my child's brain? It's what are we exchanging for the screen time that our kids are having? The recommendation that I would actually endorse is that we limit any kind of exposure to a screen prior to age 2. That we just don't go there. Now, there will be times and exceptions, and I'll actually address a few of those. Too much screen time for toddlers, children under the age of 2 particularly, is not a good idea because during that important developmental stage, they need to be interacting with real people in the real world, having the experiences that will assist in their language development and their social development. Screens cannot provide that. Now, having said that, screens are becoming the primary interface that we have for education, entertainment, communication. A lot of different things depend on these little devices that we have now. So our kids will be exposed to them, and as we intentionally create experiences and opportunities for them, that's going to go a lot better. Here's a few considerations that I would recommend. Supervision, or what we call co-watching, co-viewing. This is where mom or dad is viewing the device with the child. You're right there with them. So that it's not just the child with the screen, it's the child with mom or dad and the screen. We're using the screen as a tool or a device to facilitate a learning process. So you're commenting about what's on the screen. You're helping them to anticipate what's coming next. You're having some communication and conversation about it while you're viewing together. This is one of the first considerations that I would throw out there. And along those lines, supervision implies that you have some knowledge or awareness of what's going on with the screen time of your kiddos. I would not recommend, in fact, I would strongly discourage placing a computer or a television or a screen or a tablet in a child's bedroom. I think there's a lot of professional support for this too. It's tempting because of the world that we live in to put those kinds of devices right in the child's room. Probably not a good idea. At the very least, because of this supervision issue, you need to be aware of what your kids are interacting with. It's also a safety measure. There are internet threats that never existed when we were kids. Our children are facing those things on a regular basis, and that's why it's so important for mom and dad to be aware of and monitoring and regulating the use of electronic devices like smartphones or tablets. Here's a little tip, by the way. Charging stations get to be in common areas or in mom and dad's space. That's where the device gets to sleep during the night, where it gets to be recharged. And if you set it up that way, then it becomes an expectation, and you'll get less resistance from the kids eventually if that's just where the charging stations are. So they're not taking these devices into the privacy of their bedroom, which is a safety issue and also a way for you to monitor as a parent what's going on. Now, when I interview parents or talk to them about this issue, the reason that we want our kids to have access to a tablet or to a smartphone or any electronic device, typically as parents, we say the reason is for education, right? Yeah. Now, education is one of the applications. Why do the kids want to use it? Typically for entertainment. Now, if we're really being honest with ourselves, one of the primary reasons we use a device is for distracting or occupying our kids so that they're not doing something else. I mean, be honest about it. You put the kid on the tablet because why? You want him to be educated? No, because you've got something you need to do and you need the kid out of your hair for a little bit. Let's just be honest about that. And it's okay. There's nothing destructive or inherently wrong with that. In fact, it's probably something that helps you to be a better parent overall. So maybe we can vacate some of the guilt associated with this thing and realize that it's okay to do that occasionally. Acknowledging that we use it for that purpose helps us to get a little more clear about this next consideration, and it has to do with the content. Content matters. There's all kinds of content out there, and there will be things that are appealing to or actually targeting your kids that you may or may not approve of. So the content that your kids are consuming is something that you should be familiar with as a parent, and you get to be the parent here and set some appropriate limits. Pay attention to things like ratings on video games, on movies, on entertainment content. And not all of it is going to have ratings. When it does, pay attention to it. There's a reason for those things. If you don't want your kids exposed to violence, for example, in video games or internet content, then you're going to have to do some proactive work to not only educate your kids about that, but to educate yourself so that you're up to speed with what's out there. Do you really know what's going on in the video game that your kid so much enjoys? Take some time, do some diligence, do a little bit of research on that so that you can be a more conscious, present parent. Content matters. With all of the opinions that exist around this issue, I think as you handle some of the considerations that we've mentioned in this video, it puts you in a position where you can best support your kids and make some good decisions about when to introduce them to devices or to media. Keep in mind that these things, these tools, these devices are here to enhance our lives. They're not here to take over. They're not here to replace all of the other wonderful experiences that we can have. So they need to be handled with certain levels of moderation and wisdom. And that probably goes without saying. We're all going to be in a position as parents sometimes where we just want the electronic nanny to take care of things for a few minutes, right? If you got to put the kid on the tablet while you grab a shower, do that. Take care of yourself. That's why I said earlier, let's just can the guilt. Let's get rid of the shame around, oh, I'm letting my kid use a tablet. Well, that's not a bad thing. Use it with discretion and judgment and wisdom, and it's okay occasionally if you need to have a little bit of assistance as a parent. We've got the tools, let's use them to our advantage. That's why they're there in the first place. And as we practice moderation, don't let it get out of hand. Stay involved and attached with what your kids are viewing, then I think we're going to be okay. There's a lot of other questions that come up for parents. Vicki and I are taking those on in the Parenting Power Up. You're going to see a link to it right over there. I hope that you'll check it out. What we've put together here is an audio course just for you as a conscious parent to address specific challenges that come up with all of the philosophy to back it up. I think you're going to enjoy this, and we're happy to be on your parenting team.
And I wished I'd had a number so I could be color unknown. And then a child had look into my